First of all, I would like to say how happy I am to finally be here in front of you in this intimate gathering. I've been actually planning this together with Vivek, to whom I owe my invitation to this event. Well, we had been planning it already 2 years ago. It was supposed to happen in 2020, and as you mentioned, there was a certain delay. Nevertheless, I'm even more happy that I finally am here. And I also have to mention, so I'm very, very grateful to the Literature Festival of Goa and to the organizers. I'm very happy to be again in Goa. And I have to mention that I'm here in India this time as a research fellow of the Indian Council for Cultural Relations, to whom I owe this 1 year invitation to do research on Drupad. I don't know if you are, or how much you are aware of Drupad. It's the ancient style of North Indian singing. And in this respect, I also would like to mention, I have here a book. Unfortunately, the bookshop got the notice a little late, so they were not organizing to...
Das ist nicht eingepackt. Das ist nicht eingepackt.
So they were not...
Hold up the book.
Oh yeah, please hold it up. So it's not available in the bookshop, but I have a few copies here. And this book is called Singers Die Twice. It's a memoir I've been writing on my teacher, Pandit Vidya Malik, when he had died. And to give you a little more about myself, I came to India first exactly 50 years ago, in 1973. I joined BHU, Binaras Hindu University, and I did musicology and Sanskrit. And I've been involved in the revival and research of Drupad for the last 50 years. So this book is a memoir about why I came to India, how it happened, and the book is actually a travelogue. When Pandit Vidya Malik died in 2003, at that time I was in Berlin, and so I received the note, and the last rites were performed in his ancestral village in near Darbhanga. The Malik family had been attached to the court of Darbhanga for a couple of 100 years, and so the last rites were held there. And so I flew to Delhi, and I got on at that time it was called the Shahid Express, going from the Shahid Express, with what a fitting name. And so it was supposed to go from Delhi to Darbhanga, but what happened is that I think around the area of Muzaffarpur, it got stuck because there was a flood. All Bihar was under a flood, and I mean a giant flood. You looked out of the window of the train and it was like an ocean, and you felt like only some trees or some chimneys were sticking out of the water. And nevertheless, I had made up my mind to attend the last rites of Pandit Vidya Malik. So I had a very adventurous travel through Nepal and through some byways that I finally reached his village. So I'm here in my book, Journey to the Land of Drupad, my title, Singers Die Twice. I recount the story of that trip, of that travel, and in the travel story inside are my memories, how I came to India, how I first listened to music, then how I came to know about Indian music, how I went to India, how I met the Malik family, the family of my teachers, on the Tulsi Ghat in Varanasi at the first Drupad Mela in 1975. And I've been attached to this family for the last 5 generations now, so accompanying them. And I've been studying Drupad also, mainly not with the aim of becoming a Drupad performer, but I'm also a composer, and I wanted to know how that type of music works. And of course, I'm also singing, but my personal roots go, of course, back to Germany, and my earliest memory are that I've been listening to my father singing folk songs and playing the lute when I was lying in the cradle of a maybe 2-year-old kid, and that triggered my love of music and of songs, and I've been following the songs and sung poetry all my life. Not only in India, I've been living for many years in Turkey, in Iran. I've spent a long time in West Africa, Mali, and I've been in East Africa, Ethiopia, and always Morocco, also always in company of musicians. So I've been a freelancer all my life, but I have an academic background, also in Chinese studies and in Indian studies. But I organized many international festivals. I organized the Festival of India in '92 in Berlin, which was the biggest ever happening music festival of India in Germany. And also other countries, and published hundreds and hundreds of records. And I was running a world music show in Berlin for 20 years. So I brought literally hundreds and hundreds of Indian musicians to Germany, but not only Indians, also from Pakistan and from all over the world. And so I've been deeply steeped in the musical traditions of many, many countries. And having that strong background in Drupad and Indian music, I've been also performing Drupad internationally, but I always felt a bit strange about me as a German singer singing for a German audience versus in British Bhasha, which none of them, of course, was able to understand. And it's a little bit of an awkward position, because I believe that the sound and the song is equally important as the words. So the words contain a message, and words in a song only make sense if the singer is completely convinced of what he's singing. So I've been always looking for something. How could I transform the same kind of energy and the same kind of spirit and of mood in a German idiom, not only so I wouldn't have to sing in a language which I always have to explain, but words should be understood as they are. So I remember that when I was studying Sanskrit at the University of Marburg in Germany. It's one of the old seats of Indology, and that was back in the 70s, and there's a very famous bookshop there, and we have this little Reklam editions. It's a series which has been in existence in Germany since the 1920s, I guess, or even longer. It's originally from Leipzig. So I saw this book of poetry of a singer I've never heard the name of before medieval German singer. We call them the Minnesingers. And I opened the book and I read a verse, and immediately I heard it like sung. It was like an acoustic, vision, you know, like how would you call that? An acoustic. I don't find the right word in English at the moment. Anyway, so, and this was like in a melody which sounded not like the straight Western music which was happening at the time. In the 70s we were surrounded by Frank Zappa and the Beatles and Cream and all that, and I was very fond of that, but this was more like an oriental kind of melody. And I looked at the book and I read about this poet, and the poetry was totally amazing. It was like a spiritual love poetry of the kind very close, I mean almost literally, as you have bhakti poets, as you have Nandas or Sudras or Tulsidas in India, or also as a Sufi poets like Rumi or Hafiz or whoever you want to name. There are too many of them, and not too many, but many. So, and I read the life story of this person, Heinrich von Morungen, and to my astonishment, I read that he had been traveling to India in the at the end of the 11th century. Actually, that was, we said he traveled from Germany to India, but of course at that time Germany was not existing. We had all these kinds of kingdoms and fiefdoms and whatever, a feudal system. And this man, Heinrich von Morungen, he was attached to the Count of Thüringen. And he worked at his court. He was a court singer. And that actually was the most famous court regarding music in Germany, in the what we nowadays call Germany at that time. And this was a center of learning and literature and music. And actually, you know, this was a time when the Crusades were happening. The Crusades were, which the Pope called Christianity to march to Jerusalem and so on. And his count, Dietrich von Meissen, the count, the king of this our singer, he went on a crusade, but this my friend, who I had discovered in this little book, he absented himself from this crusade. He didn't want to. He was not. He was a conscientious objector, maybe. Anyway, he didn't want to march to Jerusalem, but he went left and he went to India. And actually, at that time, there was very much talk in Europe about Saint Thomas and the legendary Saint Thomas who had gone to India. And there were also other locations where he, at that time, said where he was supposed to have died. Also in Ethiopia was a guess, and also there is a place in Turkey where they also believe that Saint Thomas came there. But I'm sure you all are aware that Saint Thomas martyrdom in Milapur, I think near Chennai. And I actually had been there, so he went there, and this is historical proof. Of course, he didn't fill out any C form at that time, and he didn't have a passport, so there is no historical proof as such. But in the annals of the monastery, so he went to Chennai. And he actually brought back some of the bones of St. Thomas. He brought them back to Leipzig, and on the bones he established a monastery. in the memory of St. Thomas. And the bones since then have disappeared. Nobody knows where they are. It's 800 years ago, you have to understand. He died in the monastery in 1220. There's still a gravestone which in memory of him. But the only proof we have is that in the annals it is said that a singer by that name is said to have gone to India and came back, and he died in around 1220. So now if we think about the background, about the time he was living in Europe, this was the time of the Crusades. This was the time of the what we heard yesterday, what also happened in Goa. The Inquisition was persecuting the people, and especially you have to understand that the word troubadour, which you just gave a translation of, actually the word troubadour has an Arab origin. It comes from tarab, and tarab is a pleasure which you experience through music. So that's it's a very popular word in Arab musical circles. So the Troubadours are the troubadours they gave their they got their inspiration from Arab singers, and at that time we had in the south of Europe, in Spain, was Moorish Arab coexisting with Jewish and Christian culture. This culture got only extinguished in 1493 or whereabouts, I don't remember that. But it was still flourishing at that time, and there were a lot of spiritual and cultural and musical movements in the south of Europe, and they were totally opposed to the Crusades, and they were persecuted by the church. And actually, after the Crusades, after the third Crusade had failed, we know that all the Crusades led not to the recapture of Jerusalem. So when and it was mainly a financial operation, like if you look at the causes of war, nowadays you also find financial backgrounds. So what happened is that after the Crusade had failed, the Pope and the armies of the Pope, they started to attack the heretics within Europe. And they started to extinguish and kill and persecute all the troubadours and all the people who had this kind of love poetry and so on, to the effect that even the language, which was the original language of the troubadours, which was at that time a language, not just a dialect, it was a language which was used between France and on the borders between France and Spain, close to Catalonia. So even the language got extinguished. The books were burned. The instruments were burned. At that time, the Roman Church was very much in a Taliban mood, I would say. They were.
Man hört das nicht mehr.
It doesn't.
Nicht die untere Hand.
Hold it closer.
Ja.
Now?
Zu laut.
Okay,
zu
sorry.
laut. So.
Yeah, now you can hear me. Okay, sure. I imagine that when Heinrich von Moorungen came back from his trip to India, he came into a culture which had turned very much hostile towards music and love poetry and all that. So he retired into a monastery, and he gave his possessions to that monastery, and then he finally died. But now, 200 years after his death, at the courts in that area, there was made a collection of all the poetry of all the German poets who had been in the German language. This is a language which we call Middle High German. It's a language which we still can understand, but some meanings have shifted and have got a different color. It's a little bit like if you're singing ancient drupas of the time of Tansen in Brij Bhasha, contemporary people even in Vrindavan, they would not really get the full meaning of some words which were used in the 16th, 15th, 16th, 17th century in Brij Bhasha. So it's a little bit familiar, but still, like if you sing that, German people will understand the meaning of the songs. And so I did not want to make a historical study of that man, but I wanted to take the inspiration to have somebody who is inspired by Oriental melodies and Oriental lore and Oriental themes and so on. So I recomposed. Okay. So this manuscript, the Manessische Liederhandschrift, is very, very famous. It's like the most famous medieval manuscript we have. There are about 100 poets in there. Even some kings did poetry at that time in that area. And he is one of them. And there are 33 songs of Heinrich von Moronen. And there is his portraits. All the singers have a portrait. The original manuscript is preserved also in the library of Heidelberg. And so we have his texts, and I went through all the texts. They had been discussed and translated, and they are very outstanding, very unusual in the sense that they are really very close to Oriental love poetry, more close than any other poet of that time in Germany. And so the melodies are not existing anymore of all these songs because they were never written down, like you have in your music also before 19th century. It wasn't. So it was like the same idea. Moreover, also the intonation which was used at that time, the form of music inspired by Arab and Jewish composition models from Spain and so on. It was also, it must have been very close to Oriental styles. And so I, who had been traveled, I also have now to say that the first time I came to India, I came overland, like my predecessor, Heinrich von Moronen, he also came overland. So I also came overland and got stuck in Pakistan for a couple of years. Then, 73, I was in India. So I knew all and I've been playing with Turkish street musicians and in Persia all along the way. I picked up music over there. And so since the melodies of these wonderful verses were not existing anymore, I sort of recomposed them in Oriental styles, in Turkish and Baluchi and Persian and some Drupad, also some other, whatever came fitting to the mode of poetry. And I started to perform these songs with a band of musicians which I have collected. There was a Turkish gypsy, there were some Indian musicians in there, there was an Ethiopian troubadour there, and a Syrian wood player and so on. So we got together to play all these songs in that original mode. And we toured, we made even a theater piece out of that called The Donkey in the Forest of Honey, meaning a Westerner reaching India, which is like the forest of honey, and he's a donkey, so he has to find his way through the strange atmosphere and culture. Sometimes, and I feel the mic is going.
Immer wenn du deine Hand unten drauf legst.
Okay. Now it's okay? Okay. This is just to give you a little background on Heinrich von Ohren and what I did, what was my aim. I mean, how I approached his poetry and his songs. It's strictly not a historical reconstruction. There are historical reconstructions done there are some early notations also of European music, but they are very academic and they don't fit the real spirit of the music, I would say. It would be like if you would pick up a sargam of an Indian musician and try to reconstruct it and perform it without having any knowledge about ragas. The recital would be very strange. So this was done in music high schools and so on. And that is strictly not my way. I think that if you go on the road from Morocco and the West, all through that continent, down to Burma or so on, you all along the way, you are encountering very similar melodies. In India it's called ragas, the Persians call it dasgas, and the Arabs would call it makams. But these are all very much related. And even the instruments are very close, like the Persian sitar I brought here with me. This instrument I picked up in a Jewish store in Iran, in Esfahan, or was it in 1969. So since then I carry this instrument with me, and I picked it because I'm a traveling musician, so as a traveler you need an instrument which is very, very light, and which doesn't take, so this is very easy to transport. And this is, in Persia, it's called the sitar. Se means string, tar means string, and this must be the grandmother of the Indian sitar. Came to India probably in that shape, and the Indians, with their genius, they blew it up to 30 strings. Si means 30, so a sitar more or less has 30 strings. But this is the original one, it just has 3 strings. And I play it this way, but I don't play it the Persian way. I play it in the style which I developed my own, and I just use it to accompany songs. But this is to illustrate that also the instruments on that, what we call the road of the Troubadours from Morocco to Burma, and it's not only the instrument which travel up and down, and the melodies which are traveling up and down, also the contents. And you have, of course, the gypsies coming from the east and settling down in Spain, and then in Turkey and Andalusia and Cantefondo, these are, it's like a Bhairavi mode, Indians would call it Bhairavi. And also the musicians in my band, the Turkish gypsy player, he actually was born in Greece, but he came to Turkey. But he spoke only Turkish, and my Indian friends spoke Hindi, little bit of English. I spoke Hindi and English, but no Turkish. The Arab player, he knew Arab, and also France, because he had gone to France, but he didn't know any English. So we had a band of people who did, the only language we had was that language, was the language of music. So, which is like a proof that I don't know how much time I have. I promised to sing a song. So how much time do I have?
20 Minuten.
20 minutes? That's good. just a final remark on the music. You know, when I went into ethnomusicology, or like a superficial vision of Western and Eastern music, you know, like in the general textbooks, you would also have, you would always find that they say, well, Oriental music is based on melodies and it's a single line of a melody, and Western music is based on harmony and chords, so that's like an opposite. That's not at all the case. Actually, European music also started monodic, and the music which was sung in the times of Heinrich von Mohring, 11th, 12th century, that was very much based on shrutis. I mean, it had the same kind of system of intonations. It was also still used in the churches, and it was only like in the 13th, 14th century that they developed two voices at the same time and then chorals. But this system of harmony, altered tempered intonation, was actually not even developed in Europe. It comes from China, and it was developed by it was invented or discovered by a Chinese prince in the 15th century, and he discarded it. He said it's not used, it's not good to use for music, because everything is out of tune if you construct chords this way. But in Europe, of course, this happened. All the intonation was altered, which still so it went. It brought music into a kind of a blind alley, because there is a limit to what you can do in a tempered system using chords, and we see the result of that in the music of the 20th century. So we also made a film about the role of the troubadours for the European cultural channels, and it starts with me sitting, at the time I was living in Vrindavan, running a music school in Vrindavan in the Radha Raman Mandir, and I was sitting on this boat on the river, and the director of this film, she asked me, why have you come here? And I say, I came here because my culture had lost its cultural memory. I came here to refresh my musical memory, because I want to understand what can be done with the human voice singing poetry. So this is my aim. This is a little bit of the background. So I'm trying, actually I'm not seeing myself as a performer sitting on stage in front of an audience, but the way I like to do music is, you know, few people, like-minded people sitting together, having some conversation, drinking some tea, and you know, occasionally somebody picks up an instrument and sings a song. But it's not like up to entertainment, or, I mean, it can be very much entertaining, but it's not up to, we don't want critics who write a review, he did that right and that wrong, and all that. It's just, the beautiful thing about music really is that it's the communications of feelings. And whereas with words, you're always stuck that you communicate meanings, and there is an endless discussion, because meaning can be changed in so many different ways. So, like if we have a discourse, just think we have a discourse and we use the word God. How many different meanings can be applied to that word, or love, you know? So if you hear somebody singing, you always, you get a feeling that, is he really speaking from his heart, or with words? It's much more chance that people are trying to impose you, or you know, impress you and twist the words. So So it's with a person's voice you can always hear if he's really at that what he's doing or not. So I don't know how much it comes because we don't have the microphone here, and I want to use this as an electronic tambura to have